Yo, what's going on guys, it's Cynical and welcome back to another video. Today for you guys, I wanted to talk about and dedicate an entire video talking about one of my most favorite features and additions a Kingdom Hearts game has ever received. This was back in 2010 for Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, which was the Mirage Arena. This is a system that I have wanted ever since Birth by Sleep to return for a future installment time and time again. Mainly, of course, looking at Kingdom Hearts 3, I was really crossing my fingers that some type of Mirage Arena, or just simply the Mirage Arena in some type of form, would return for the game. A world dedicated to a multitude of different additional modes for the game, as well as having a slight emphasis on multiplayer play as well. Although multiplayer modes have never really been a major key thing for Kingdom Hearts titles, and are by no means a necessity to any of the games that end up releasing, this sort of seems like Square Enix's first real true crack at a full-blown type of multiplayer mode, with every mode available in the Mirage Arena to be able to be played in multiplayer aside from that of Rumble Racing. And to be honest, this is really the closest we've ever come to having the traditional sort of Kingdom Hearts experience in the sense of gameplay. Of course, we did have Kingdom Hearts Days, which included a mission mode which allowed you and a bunch of buddies to play as the different organization members and take on exclusive missions just for the mode itself. But of course, this was a game that was on the DS, at least when we look at the PlayStation Portable for Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, definitely felt closer to the traditional Kingdom Hearts gameplay that was found on the PS2 titles, as well as the visual side of things too. Now, it's not just really the multiplayer side of the Mirage Arena that I really enjoyed, but it was just more so the entire idea of it in itself. Now, it makes sense that a game like Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep received a world that was dedicated to hosting a multitude of different additional modes to kill some time on, mainly because of the fact that if you actually do look at Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep, you can actually wrap up the story fairly quickly. If we actually take into account how long it takes to go through Terra, Aqua, and Ventus's stories, combining them all together, you'll come out with almost the sort of usual length of a normal Kingdom Hearts game, which generally clocks in at about 20 to 25 hours. So due to that shorter story length with having 3 individual stories that all kind of intertwine, I guess you could say that Square Enix felt the need to have an additional mode there for each of the 3 characters to add a little bit more game time to the overall clock. And when we do look at like Kingdom Hearts 1 and Kingdom Hearts 2, we of course had things like the Olympus Coliseum with the arena fights there. Harder matches would become unlocked once you cleared the game. There are also additional little mini games to do once you had finished the game as well, and of course the secret bosses. A lot of this was actually thrown into the Mirage Arena. Of course, there were some other secret bosses that weren't part of the Mirage Arena, but most of the post-game content could be found here. I have to say though, one of the most heartbreaking things about Kingdom Hearts 2.5 HD Remix is the simple fact that there is no longer any multiplayer component for the Mirage Arena. This does make sense. Kingdom Hearts 2.5 is of course just an HD remaster of a few different Kingdom Hearts games, namely Kingdom Hearts 2 and Birth by Sleep. And of course, Square Enix would have to have servers operating in order for people to actually play the multiplayer aspect of the Mirage Arena on their PlayStation 3. So I totally understand why Square decided not to add the multiplayer component. The same could also be said for Kingdom Hearts 2.8. As you guys should probably know, Dream Drop Distance did actually have a multiplayer component as well for Flick Rush. You could verse people online rather than just versing the CPUs. Although, I gotta say, I'm really not too cut up about Flick Rush not receiving its multiplayer component for 2.8, but it's a completely different story when I look at 2.5 in the Mirage Arena, and especially to be able to play like BBS 720p 1080p with touched up textures looking nice and crisp in HD with that multiplayer right there, getting that true experience. So let's talk about this. The biggest chunk of the Mirage Arena is comprised from the actual arena mode, which I guess is where the core of this concept stems from. This is pretty much thrown through an arena type thing with a few extra little cherries on top. You'll be spending most of your time in the Mirage Arena going through the different arena matches, which in the vanilla version of Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep for PlayStation Portable, there were a total of 13 different matches. Yeah, 13. This is Nomura. He can never part ways with that damn number. And with the final mix version of BBS that was Japan exclusive for a little while, also included an additional 3 more arena matches. In order to actually unlock the matches and more pieces of content throughout the Mirage Arena, the arena itself had its sort of own leveling progression system. So the more content that you would do in the Mirage Arena, namely the Rumble Racing, Command Board, and arena matches, you would eventually rank up with a max rank of 30. I definitely liked it because it was kind of like the more that you completed throughout the arena itself, you would be rewarded with more content. There was also a currency as well that would allow you to buy all sorts of cool things. You could buy recipes, shot locks, materials, you could even buy like taunts and emotes, which originally for the PlayStation Portable version was more so centered around using with your friends. I mean, otherwise, really, what's the point? As well as that, there were definitely commands made for specifically multiplayer in mind, especially when we look towards like group cure. And interestingly, Square Enix decided to keep the taunts, emotes, and even group cure within 2.5, even though really it just makes more sense to use normal cure, cura, or curaga. And really at this point, the sort of emotes and taunts are kind of useless. Although I gotta say, I'm glad they kept them in there, because honestly it's a neat little novelty to still have them in there. The first 13 matches of the arena consists of pretty much reversing a lot of the different unverse you'd come through throughout the story, but harder variations of them, as well as the different unverse bosses that you would also come across in the story as well, but again, harder variations of them. There was actually an exclusive boss in the Mirage Arena that you would fight throughout those first 13 matches, which was known as the Iron Imprisoner. Throughout, you would fight 4 different versions in total of this Iron Imprisoner, all of which became harder and harder and harder and changed his moveset up as you go up his ranks. And Iron Imprisoner 4 had a really cool mechanic where he actually starts ripping the floating walls of the Mirage Arena and starts to actually chuck them at you. Yeah, he's literally using the arena itself as an attack. I thought that was kind of cool from a design standpoint. However, it was most certainly the final mix matches that really added some true variation to these matches, which were the Monster of the Sea match, the Lights Lessons match, and the Peering into Darkness match. Monster of the Sea was just absolutely fantastic and acted as a type of throwback to that of course, Monstro, as you're fighting Monstro. Yeah, Monstro became a full-blown boss in Birth by Sleep, even though Pinocchio's world wasn't featured in the game at all. They're just like, fuck it, let's just throw this fat-ass whale back in. Because, you know, just cause. And the match is absolutely fantastic. Like, you start off inside of Monstro's stomach, you have to take down a few waves of unversed with inside of him, of course, totally making sense as the Monstro world in Kingdom Hearts 1 consists entirely with inside of Monstro, and then eventually you're blown out of Monstro and you have to face him as a boss. The boss fight itself isn't really anything too crazy, but for creativity's sake, this was really cool. You had to fight against a time limit, which I believe is about 3 minutes, which really was the only sort of stressful part of this fight, having to do it within a certain amount of time. There was actually also a specific method you had to use in order to stun Monstro to be able to then land some damage on him. You'd have to fling explosive barrels at this whale, he's then stunned, and then you jump on his tongue and smack him in the 5 dome. However though, the next 2 matches are where things start to get a little bit more serious. So first up is Lights Lessons. This is a fight that pits us against the armor of Ericus. Actually seeing Ericus in his Keyblade armor was just kind of fantastic to see. It's badass, kind of adorning that sort of almost samurai aesthetic to a degree. It was sort of like the Ericus fight throughout the story when we're playing as Terra, times about 108. This man's defense rating is absolutely fucking crazy. Although the man doesn't actually have too much health, most certainly his defense makes up for it. I think what was really cool about this fight though was the fact that depending on who you're actually playing as versing the armor of Ericus, he could actually mimic set certain different command styles from each of the different characters. As an example, the armor could use Critical Impact against Terra, against Ventus he could use Fever Pitch, and against Aqua he could use Spellweaver. These are just examples, he can use a lot more than just those 3. I believe that there were actually some difficulty complaints towards this fight specifically when looking at the PlayStation Portable version of Final Mix, which again was only available in Japan. Because of this, this, Square Enix actually decided to tone down some parameters for the fight to make it a little bit more bearable. And the final match is Peering into Darkness, a fight that pits us against Master Xehanort's armor, which is known as No Heart. Personally, I found this fight to be a little bit more challenging than the armor of Ericus, however though, these can both be seen as sort of similar in regards to that of the difficulty level. This fight more so keeps you on your toes and you're having to dodge, dippity dive around all over the place, as No Heart likes to pretty much chuck a lot of shit at you, his darkness-based shot lock, as well as flinging an abundance of no-name keyblades at you. It's a big pain in the ass. In a way too, this was kind of a throwback as well in regards to Kingdom Hearts 2. You'll remember during those sets of Xemnas fights at the end of KH2, there is a phase we have to go through where No Name is sitting on a chair, utilizing a lot of the different Organization 13 weapons. Of course, we don't need to get into the lore. Xemnas is that of Xehanort, and Terra's nobody, hence the reason he can utilize No Name, the true armor of Xehanort. Except this time, he's decided to get off his lazy silver ass and actually move around, and it turns out he's Sonic Speed, bro. Lessons of Light as well as Peering into Darkness were definitely the two heavy hitter additions to that of Final Mix, being able to verse both Ericus as well as Xehanort in sort of their fight modes. Of course, these have no sort of canon connection to the story, as these are just simple simulations, but still, these were absolutely fantastic fights. As I said, the arena mode is definitely the bread and butter to that of the Mirage Arena. It's such a shame that Laguna, a character from Final Fantasy VIII, was actually scrapped from that of the Mirage Arena. There was actually supposed to be a Final Fantasy character that was meant to be sort of the head of the arena. I imagine that he would be sort of announcing the waves coming in and would be commentating the fight as it progresses. Next is Rumble Racing. Yes, Kingdom Hearts' own take on a racing-based minigame. No, it's not Kingdom Carts. I know this would have been the perfect opportunity, but of course they used the Keyblade gliders. They couldn't kind of call it that, but I feel like they just kind of missed out here. Yeah, this is sort of one of the least preferred additional modes within Kingdom Hearts Birth by Sleep. You do actually have to do one of the races throughout the story, otherwise so much more of this mode is accessible via the Mirage Arena. Now, although I started off hating the command board, I ended up actually more so preferring the command board over Rumble Racing in the end, only because of the fact that Rumble Racing is pretty clunky, though it's not exactly a hard mode to completely clear out, as you will need to do so in order to 100% the Mirage Arena. The controls are just it just kind of seems like Rumble Racing was most certainly a sort of afterthought, but still cool nonetheless that Square Enix decided to throw in a racing-based sort of minigame into Kingdom Hearts. I honestly would never have expected it. There were 4 separate different maps that you could race through. Country Chase is the one that you have to do throughout the story. Otherwise, there's 3 additional ones within the Mirage Arena: Disney Drive, Grand Spree, and Castle Circuit. These maps were okay, nothing too mind-blowing or anything. They just pretty much send you around different parts of Disney Town, which is also Disney Castle, so I guess it was kind of cool to see a little bit more of this world. I especially like the Castle Circuit. They pretty much infused like all areas of Disney Castle into a racetrack, especially seeing more of the gummy ship hangar area. But yeah, as I was saying, like the actual controls of this minigame weren't really the greatest. It was just the sort of very simplistic attempt at a Kingdom Hearts racing minigame, which even if the minigame itself really isn't all that great, it's still cool to know that Square Enix took some time out to make a racing-based mode for Kingdom Hearts. Honestly speaking, and I know so many people are down on this, it would actually be so cool to get a fully fledged Kingdom Hearts kart racer or something like that, where all of the different tracks could revolve around the different Disney worlds and original Kingdom Hearts worlds. How they would infuse this into the canon, I don't know, but I'm sure it's possible. We are getting a rhythm-based game that is canon, so I could totally see some kind of kart racer somehow being canon as well. Next is the command board. Now, yeah, like I was saying before, I initially started off hating this mode. Absolutely just hating this mode. Mainly because of the fact that, again, to progress forward in the Mirage Arena to unlock all the content that there is to unlock, you do need to win 7 matches of the command board. This can be on any map, and the easiest one to win on is most certainly the Keyblade board. And previous to this, I didn't really know too much about Fortune Street, or known in Japan as Adaki Street, which was also another thing that was created by Square Enix, which turned out to be massively successful over in Japan. This is Kingdom Hearts' own iteration of exactly that. Essentially, it is a board game, and the idea is to accumulate the GP required in order to win. You mainly accumulate GP by crossing the 4 different colored checkpoints around the board. There are also special other squares or cubes that you can land on that can give you high amounts of GP as well as also being able to spend your GP to buy empty cubes on the board, meaning that if your opponent lands on the cube that you have purchased, they will end up having to pay you GP. Once you have the required amount of GP to win, you must return to the starting cube and you've won the game. Those right there are the basic fundamentals of Fortune Street. However, there are definitely some Kingdom Hearts twists to this. It is called the command board, as it does use a random selection of your commands, whether it be sort of magic based or attack based, in order to utilize set different abilities. Attack commands will provide you with stun, making it so that your opponent has to skip a turn. Magic based ones will give you an advantage over being able to roll 2 or 3 dice, which really is the best method towards winning. Once you've got that method down, really there's no way to actually defeat you, especially on the Keyblade board. And also the special cubes on the board as well. These are the purple ones with the golden sparkles, and what's cool is there are a bunch of different themed boards, all of which represent different worlds that we've been to throughout Kingdom Hearts, mainly the ones in BBS. For each of those, you verse an opponent that corresponds to that world, and for the special cube, they have their own special thing that also corresponds to that world. As an example right here, the 100 Acre Wood, if we land on the special cube, it will summon around honeypots all over the board, and if you collect a honeypot, you are granted some GP. I ended up playing multiplayer on the command board quite some time after the release of Kingdom Hearts 2.5, and I have to say, I honestly had a damn blast with this. I really do wish that even though we didn't get the online multiplayer component for 2.5, even just to have a local multiplayer mode for specifically this minigame would have been tight. And finally is the Versus mode. Yes, you guys might not know about this if you never played the PlayStation Portable version of Birth by Sleep, as it was just completely removed from 2.5, but this was a mode that allowed you to verse your friend in actual Kingdom Hearts combat. Now, I know that sounds absolutely insane, right? Some kind of 1v1 competitive mode with actual Kingdom Hearts gameplay, but trust me, it really didn't work all that well. You can imagine online using commands, because of course Birth by Sleep introduced the command deck system. It was also like a known thing as well that there was quite a bit of latency when playing BBS online. Didn't really matter what mode you did, so it was even more noticeable when doing the competitive versus mode. Yeah, it was pretty fucking jank. I ended up playing a little bit of this with Dean around the time that we were actually doing our Mirage Arena co-op series. The plan was to actually finish off that series with the 1v1 versus. I'm still so sad that we never ended up finishing off that series, god dang it. But yeah, as much as the idea was really cool, it didn't work all that well. Still, I commend Square Enix for at least giving this a shot. I've always wanted a sort of online competitive mode for Kingdom Hearts. Again, you know, multiplayer is definitely a bonus thing if we get it. It's never a necessity, but the idea is certainly cool. I honestly do hope that at some point in the near future, some of the ideas that were implemented initially into that of the Mirage Arena, especially looking towards the multiplayer side of things, will one day be further implemented into that of another Kingdom Hearts title. Take your learning experiences from Square Enix and further improve it. I'm also just so sad that so many people didn't get the chance to experience this. While not every corner of this mode worked perfectly when looking at the multiplayer side of things, this is without a doubt Square Enix's biggest attempt at full-on Kingdom Hearts multiplayer. And the beauty of something like the Mirage Arena is it can be input into basically any Kingdom Hearts game without needing any sort of attachment to that of the actual ongoing story, which I feel like can be sort of hard sometimes for Square Enix to come up with additional modes. Maybe they think, oh shit, we actually have to somehow incorporate this into the story for it to make sense being here. But that really is the beauty of the Mirage Arena. Similar to the data battles, those are just simple simulations. Not much story needs to go behind them in order for it to make sense, though. I will say my hats off to Square Enix for actually turning the data battles in Kingdom Hearts 3 into an actual actual relative story setup, that was pretty damn smart. Of course, there is really no lore behind the Garden of Assemblage and the Cavern of Remembrance in Kingdom Hearts 2, it's just there to be additional content, and the same can also be said for that of the Mirage Arena. So that's pretty much all I wanted to talk about today, guys. I know this is a slightly longer video, and I was really not expecting to be able to talk about the Mirage Arena for this long, but I guess that just kind of goes to show how much I really love this mode. In the comment section down below, please do let me know, did you guys like the Mirage Arena, and would you love it to be further implemented for the future of the series at some stage? Now guys, I'm Cynical, hopefully you have a fantastic day, and until next time guys, I'll catch you later. Peace.